I mean, you're the one that pressed play. What do you want us to say here? What do you want us to say? What was the final?
28-14.
28-14, and not that close.
No, not at all. I mean, it was 21-0 before you could blink an eye.
And it's indicative of the broader trend, obviously. The Steelers having lost 5 in a row to finish their season. It's indicative of the way broader trend, which is the one that goes back over the better part of the past decade. And that's what everyone's going to be talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's now 8 straight seasons without a playoff win. And for those of you who are counting, in the Super Bowl era, that is the longest streak in franchise history. I mean, you have to go back from Super Bowl I through the time that the Immaculate Reception happened.
Just for anything comparable, yeah. It's getting to the point where one would think that, the status quo isn't going to cut it. And I'm not just talking about the head coach. I'm obviously talking about the head coach. He's the main common variable in this, but you can't just keep doing the exact same thing,
Yeah, what's the phrase? What's the definition of insanity?
Insanity,
is doing the same thing over and over and over again, and that was the case again tonight.
Actually, the definition of insanity, to be clear here, is on 4th and 15, throwing the moonshot bomb at Calvin Austin and having Mike Williams on your sideline. But I digress. This is a situation you would think on a lot of levels, Chris, that would call for change, in large part because change presents itself. Do you know what I'm saying when I say that? You don't have a quarterback. You don't have a quarterback, Pittsburgh. You do not have a quarterback. And that alone would lead you to think, all right, this is when you do it.
Yeah, absolutely, because I've actually researched this. 3/4 of the teams that have won the Super Bowl, there's 58 winners, 3/4 of them had either a quarterback that is already in the Hall of Fame or will undoubtedly, like the Tom Brady's, the Ben Roethlisberger's, Aaron Rodgers, those guys will be in the Hall of Fame. You have to have a quarterback to win in this league. And so if you don't have a quarterback...
Russ has a case. Let's be fair here. Russ is going to end up in the Hall in all likelihood. I'm just saying, just throwing that out in there.
Right, but even if you go to teams like that 2015 Broncos team that had Peyton Manning with his noodle arm at the very end of his career, they also had an all-time great defense too. And that's not an all-time great defense out there either. No. So they don't have that. So it's not like you can have, it's not like it's the 2000 Ravens or the 2002 Buccaneers where they had an all-time great defense. That's not what this is.
No, the Trent Dilfer exception only applies for so long, and it only carries so much weight over time. You
need a quarterback.
You need a quarterback. You also need, you need a lot.
Yeah, you need a lot.
I think there's some top-end talent. Something Cal just said to me downstairs. He said to me, look around. He goes, there's a lot of talent here. And he's right. Yeah. He's right. Okay. Yeah. The Steelers are not lacking in talent. With the time they were 10-3, they had arguably 2 DPOY candidates.
Yep.
Okay. They had an offense that, for whatever reason, was starting to put together 30-point performances. And they had the best special teams and obviously the best kicker. So this is not like, here's a bunch of guys who suck, and they just found themselves at the end that they actually suck. That's not what this was.
Yeah, it's about putting the product together in the arena, on the field, in the stadium, and executing the game plan each and every play. And over the past 5 games, that just hasn't seemed to be the case. There's mistakes happening left and right. We talked about the miscommunications multiple times. And
that's amazing that still was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just the miscommunications alone. We're talking about defensively, of course.
Yeah.
Just that came up again and again and again. It didn't seem to be much of an issue here. They just
got outplayed.
They got outplayed, but they also
299 yards.
Huh?
299 rushing yards, by the way.
No way.
299.
So we just got back up from the locker room. I haven't even looked at the stats.
Derrick Henry had 186 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I think Lamar Jackson had 81 yards,
something like that.
So if you think about this, because when we're talking about the defensive performance, and we can stay with this game. We got all summer to get into the other stuff. This game, we've talked for years about how the Steelers have accordioned in on Lamar. They've not let him come out of the pocket from side to side. And then Lamar, in turn, hasn't had an answer for that.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I warned about last week on the shows and the stuff that I've written was if you do this from the side, if the Ravens are smart, they're going to go this way. Well, the Ravens went that way, and they didn't meet nearly enough resistance, did they?
No, they didn't. Listen, Lamar has trended upward, in my opinion, from watching the last 4 games he's played against the Steelers team. He has been trending upward. The whole thing about, like, oh, Lamar plays bad against the Steelers, that's kind of being overblown now because this game, the last time they played, he's starting to figure this thing out. And the Steelers aren't getting to him early. They're not trying to get him. Did they try to rattle him early in the game? If they were, they weren't succeeding.
Nobody got to him.
Right.
Yeah, because they ran up the middle. And, before we give Lamar too much credit, the other guy did most of the running up the middle.
My gosh.
I mean, we've talked about it countless times. Coming into these matchups against this team, the key is to stopping 8 and 22. And they did neither of those things tonight. I thought Cam put it best. There was a lot of north to south and not enough east to west.
Yeah, but that's exactly what it was. James Harrison had something to say on Twitter, directly critical of the defensive coaching. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it. I just stumbled upon it when I came upstairs here. He basically repeated this, where he said because he's obviously an outside linebacker, an edge rusher in this type of defense, and he said at some point or other you've got to have those guys doing this a little bit. And how many times did we see? Remember the one series I said, let's just watch TJ?
Yeah.
But you can, when you're in a stadium, you don't have to watch what the TV shows you. You just watch what you want.
Yeah.
And what TJ would do, and so did Nick Herbig, and so did Alex Highsmith, is they would come like this, and they would come in behind, and it's Christmas.
Yeah.
For either Lamar or Henry.
Yeah,
it's right up the middle.
I can't count how many times I saw Lamar Jackson climb to the top of the pocket and just go through the middle of the defensive line.
Untouched, dude.
Big
Untouched,
lines there all night long. And that's something that I think that's uncharacteristic that we haven't seen in the past 2 matchups, or at least the first matchup this season.
No, the offense wasn't really any better, unless you want to count Chris's favorite play.
The deep ball.
I mean, it works.
But that's the only thing that works.
It is the only thing that works.
That is not a way. That's never been a way throughout any era of the NFL to have an efficient offense.
Flacco did it.
But even then,
right here he did it.
But
he worked for the DPIs.
Yeah, I mean, but still, like you can't operate an offense, especially nowadays, especially with the way defenses play nowadays. Defenses do everything they can to keep everything in front of them. And by the way, the Ravens were all on top of that in the first half. They didn't let the Steelers do anything down the field. And while they were taking that away, the Steelers couldn't do anything underneath because they just don't know how to.
They don't know how. There wasn't even attempts at anything underneath other than a couple balls to the one to
there
Kelvin.
There was the one slant across the middle to George.
And when that happened, what did I say?
All 3 of us were in the press box going, they threw the slant.
It was there. It was there.
I meant what I said earlier about the quarterback. And I don't mean that as a shot like, the Russ stinks or for that matter that Justin Fields is hopeless or whatever. I meant that you don't have a quarterback in the sense that you don't know. You don't know right now who the 2025 quarterback is. You can want it to be this guy or want it to be that guy or pull for somebody, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of months ahead in which they can look back at what happened over these past 5 games and understand that part of that was, a significant part of that was that Russ would just hold on to the bleeping ball forever.
Yep.
And you saw that here.
Yeah.
And you're thinking that was the one thing that you most needed to get out of the game. You want to know something? I think Arthur Smith wanted him to get it out.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen.
You see what I'm saying?
No, there were definitely
Smith made a lot of moves.
Yeah, there were definitely some plays. I mean, early on, like first 2 first downs, they were throwing the ball. So in terms of the whole burning the boats thing, they did do some different things. Now, unfortunately, neither one of those throws on first down worked. One of them was an incomplete pass to Mike Williams. Actually, the first one was a drop by
Pat. Yeah.
So, like, you have some, like, just lack of execution there.
Yeah.
But they tried to put some quick passing game stuff in there, and it just didn't work because that's not Russ. Russ has never been a quick game quarterback.
And he doesn't use the middle of the field.
Yeah.
These aren't new things.
Yeah.
When Russ was Russ, he wasn't doing this stuff because he's got to move out of the pocket. He's got to see what he wants to see. He's not the tallest quarterback in the league. And you're not going to change him at age 36.
No. But when Russ was 26 and he
could get out.
Yeah. He could get out. He could make a lot of plays with his legs. Yeah. He could do a lot of special things. The arm talent's still there. You can still see him throw the deep ball. Yeah. But it's not paired with the same athleticism and speed that he used to have. And
when he does get out of the pocket, you're surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just expecting him to go down, you
Yeah.
know, and they don't have a quarterback. They have a lot of questions that they need to answer, including, I believe, the one that they've been avoiding for a long, long time now, and that's the head coach. I want to make clear that that decision will be made by one person and one person alone. There's not a committee for this. There's not a let's consult the minority owners or Dan Rooney's son or even Omar Khan and Andy Weidel. I mean, I'm sure it'll be discussed in some form or other, but it's got to be art. It's got to be art.
Yeah, and listen, we said it earlier. I mean, 8 straight seasons without a playoff win. This, to me, in my opinion, is the most stale era of the Super Bowl era of the Steelers.
It gets you fired.
Yes.
This is stuff that gets you fired.
Yeah.
This kind of a performance in a playoff game gets you fired.
Again. It's not like this is like this type of performance and the other
Oh,
5
yeah,
losses.
yeah.
It's been this same
there's
carbon copy of the same
There's not a
playoff
scope
loss.
that you can cut up here.
Yeah.
It applies to one night. It applies to 6 weeks. It applies to several years.
Yeah, I mean, I think when Mike Tomlin starts his press conference and says the Baltimore Ravens outplayed us tonight, that was obvious. I think that says a lot. I mean, to be honest.
I mean, they did. And this is a team that they beat, just a couple of months ago.
This is a team that they're supposed to know better than anybody else,
Yeah.
and they got outclassed in every form and fashion.
And didn't adjust anything defensively.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, a little bit in the second half. I should say a little bit in the first quarter or something.
99 yards rushing. I
That's-
just can't get over that number.
No, the whole thing is really, really bad. So aren't you glad you watched? Aren't you glad you watched? We'll be back with our regular shows on the Monday because we don't get eliminated just because they do, because we did not really have a bad season.
No, I thought
I
we had
don't
a great
think
season.
anyway.
I thought we had a great season.
I had fun.
So we'll be back Monday with our regular shows, Daily Shot in the morning, Double Shot in the afternoon.